It began with a silence no one expected. At precisely 10:37 p.m., during the live recording of the late-night interview that was meant to mark Menglong's comeback, every monitor in the studio went black. No warning, no power failure, just a clean, surgical cut. Crew members later swore the cameras didn't lose power, they were shut down by something. And in the half-second before the blackout, witnesses say they heard him whisper 3 words. Barely audible, but heavy enough to make the air itself feel wrong. Rumors have twisted those words into everything from a confession to a curse. But last week, a file surfaced, a confidential medical report written by the doctors who treated Menglong moments after the blackout. It was marked "Do not release under any circumstances." Shadowline Reports obtained it. The broadcast before the blackout plays out normally: laughter, routine questions, the faint tremor of studio lights. When the interviewer probes the online rumors about Menglong's health, he smiles. "I sleep fine now," he says. Then his expression changes. His pupils contract. His gaze drifts off camera, fixed on something just beyond the light rigs. Audio engineers later boosted the volume to 300% and caught the faintest pattern, 3 short syllables, not matching any known language. A second later, darkness. Studio paramedics said he'd gone into cardiac arrest. He was rushed to a private hospital. Security footage of his arrival was wiped within hours. Dr. 17's handwritten note begins the file: subject revived spontaneously. Upon regaining consciousness, said only, "Turn off the lights, they can hear through brightness." Another entry describes him staring at the ceiling corner where no camera existed and murmuring, "They're still rolling." A nurse's unsent email, recovered from the hospital server, reads, "At 1:42 a.m. he whispered the same phrase again. Lights dimmed. Machines flickered. Audio monitors picked up interference matching the studio static. He looked at the hallway camera and smiled." The file corrupted immediately afterward. When he regained lucidity before dawn, he asked for a microphone, not a phone. A nurse, already recording secretly, captured his words, "I said it once for the cameras. Now I'll say it for the ones who stayed." 3 words, that's all they needed. The heart monitors spiked together. Then another voice, faint and reversed, echoed his own. When asked what the words meant, he whispered, "They're not meant for you." Weeks later, an encrypted video appeared online titled interview_full_uncut_1037.mp4. It continues past the point where the official broadcast cuts out. The lights flicker, the air vibrates with a low hum. Menglong blinks twice. In the reflection of his eyes, faint outlines appear, people standing behind the cameras who weren't on the crew list. He speaks. The sound defies transcription. Viewers claim to hear their own names or forget the words moments later. Every forensic attempt to isolate the audio crashes the software. Deleting the clip only makes it reappear with new data. A nurse from the hospital later broke her silence in a Shadowline Reports interview. "He didn't die," she said. "That's what they told us to write. But when I looked at the monitors, they showed him sitting upright, speaking to someone unseen." The reflection mouthed a phrase, then froze. It wasn't him speaking, it was something through him. Within a month, the studio closed. The interviewer vanished overseas. The hospital rebranded and purged all files from that week, blaming a server crash. Yet technicians reported that when the new system booted, audio fragments appeared without directories, labeled only _1037. Each contained 6 seconds of whispering. Reversed and decoded, the message formed a single sentence: "Not everything you see is light." Specialists noted that the whisper's frequency matched low-range electrical surges, suggesting the blackout might have been triggered by his own voice. Internal emails between media executives reference a cleanup directive called Project Fadeout: erase everything past 10:37 p.m. If questioned, call it a malfunction. Still, fragments keep returning. Security video from the hospital corridor shows a shadow moving across a wall at 2:13 a.m. while an intercom voice mutters, "They're still recording." Linguists studying the leaked file describe the waveform as recursive. Each playback generates new data, as if the sound grows from attention itself. Every time the clip resurfaces, the same pattern follows: static, flicker, interference, and a brief pulse of light precisely at 10:37 p.m. The doctor's final note ends mid-sentence: "The patient's words were not directed at us. They were an instruction, and we followed it." The digital signature appended later bears one word from an unknown editor, replaying. No one expected the file to resurface again, least of all the technicians who had sworn under oath that every copy of the blackout footage was destroyed. Yet, on a rain-drowned Tuesday, a compressed folder labeled 1037_recurrence appeared on a private cloud belonging to an editor who had left the industry years earlier. The timestamp matched the exact minute of Menglong's collapse, down to the second. Inside were 3 clips, all silent. But when sound engineers overlaid them on a frequency spectrum, faint waves emerged, voices whispering beneath the noise. One phrase repeated, "He's still talking." The first clip showed the hospital room seconds before dawn. Menglong lay motionless, surrounded by monitors that flickered like candlelight. A nurse entered, adjusting his IV. In the window behind her, the reflection moved before she did. Experts later froze the frame. The reflection's mouth was already forming words she hadn't yet spoken. The nurse would later resign and refuse every interview, but in her final text to a colleague, she wrote, "He told me to keep the lights low. Said they travel through brightness." The second clip was different. A grainy hallway, a row of static-riddled cameras, and one figure in a white coat walking against his reflection. The reflection's ID badge read Menglong. By the third clip, the file's code began to corrupt itself, generating new frames that hadn't been recorded. Room numbers rearranged. The wall clock spun backward to 10:37 p.m. Each rotation aligned with the same 3 syllables from the original whisper, syllables now forming the rhythm of a heartbeat. Shadowline investigators reached one of the original studio engineers who'd monitored the feed that night. His voice trembled during the call. "It wasn't a blackout," he said. "The cameras didn't die. They recorded something they shouldn't have, something that looked back." When pressed, he described a flicker across all 9 monitors before the shutdown, an image of Menglong still sitting under the lights, but staring directly into the control room. Behind him stood a shape, faint and translucent, tracing the air around his shoulders like static smoke. The engineer swore that as they cut power, the figure smiled, not at Menglong, but through him. Another insider, identified only as Medic A, came forward weeks later. He was one of the doctors who signed the Do Not Release directive. In an encrypted message, he wrote, "His pulse didn't stop. The machine read 0, but the waveform drew words. When I traced the peaks, it spelled recording. We printed it. The printer caught fire." Investigators later discovered that the hospital's backup generator had logged a spontaneous power draw, exactly 1037 watts. No medical device matched that output. But the real breakthrough came when an audio specialist, analyzing the recurrence folder, reversed one of the waveforms. The whisper became clear, not silence. Transfer. Moments later, his software glitched and created a new folder, untitled, containing a 4th clip he swore he hadn't downloaded. It was 2 seconds long. Frame 1, the hospital corridor empty. Frame 2, Menglong, standing upright, eyes open, looking straight into the lens. The file vanished as soon as the playback ended. When Shadowline traced the cloud server's source, it led to a facility that didn't exist on public maps, a decommissioned media archive near the outskirts of the city. Inside, rows of disconnected monitors flickered faintly, as though receiving a signal from nowhere. On one screen, paused mid-frame, was the exact moment of the blackout. Someone had written across the glass in marker, "Keep the cameras rolling." Security logs indicated that the system still attempted daily uploads to an unknown address labeled simply Menglong Studio. No such domain existed. Those who've watched the leaked footage describe an uncanny aftereffect: lights in their homes flicker for days, and electronic devices begin recording by themselves. One witness, a former producer, reported hearing the 3 syllables whispered through his phone speakers hours after disconnecting. His last email read, "He's trying to finish the interview." Forensic linguists, analyzing all versions of the whisper, determined the sound structure resembled reversed Mandarin phonemes mixed with breath patterns that don't match human speech. One linguist fainted mid-analysis. Her final note, "It's not language. It's a code that reacts when heard." At the center of the investigation remains a single unsolved question: what did Menglong actually whisper before the cameras cut? Theories range from an encrypted message for his fans to a psychological break triggered by studio lighting. Yet all recordings agree on one haunting constant: the voice that repeats after his whisper doesn't belong to him. The latest leak came from an anonymous source claiming to have accessed a hidden drive in the broadcaster's archive. The drive contained a transcript labeled Confidential Session Audio, 1037 Rehearsal. It appeared to be a practice interview recorded hours before the live show. The file is incomplete, but in the final seconds, Menglong laughs nervously and says, "If this ever airs, it's already too late." Audio engineers noticed that the laughter doesn't echo naturally. It doubles, one laugh slightly delayed, one ahead, as if recorded by two versions of the same voice. Government officials have dismissed the case as an elaborate hoax, yet the production's original camera lenses were recently recovered from a private collector in Seoul. All 9 lenses were warped from the inside, as if exposed to heat. But the lab report contradicts itself. The metal melted without affecting the glass, an impossibility under any known conditions. And then there's the final note from Medic A, sent before he vanished. "We kept the lights dimmed as he asked. But every time the heart monitor blinked, we saw a reflection in the screen. It mouthed something. Not a plea, not pain, an instruction. The same 3 words. Nobody knows what those words were. But one thing remains undeniable: every recording, every photo, every frame tied to that night shows the same timestamp burned faintly in the corner, 1037. As if the moment itself never ended. And if you slow the leaked audio just enough, you can still hear it, a faint whisper beneath the static, neither male nor female, neither here nor gone. He's still on air.